Hello, I'm Petra. I'm a member of the Franciscan community of Our Lady of Compassion, and I've started this series of little chats and discussions about prayer for Lent. Today's the second Sunday of Lent, and I thought today we could look at what's sometimes called the prayer of the Church, or the Liturgy of the Hours, or the Divine Office. It's called all these different names. It's basically the prayer that the Church says every day throughout the whole year, and it's said by monks and nuns and priests primarily. But since Vatican II, I'm Catholic, so I come from that tradition. Since Vatican II, the popes and the Church have been asking everybody to join in with this prayer of the Church, so that it becomes literally the prayer of the whole Church. And I think that's quite beautiful, really. I understand that in the Anglican Church and other churches, there's like the Book of Common Prayer in the Anglican Church, and I think that's very similar, based on the same kind of roots. So I'm going to talk from my perspective, because that's the one I know best, which is the Catholic Church and the prayer of the Liturgy of the Hours, or the Divine Office. Basically, it's been going in the Church for centuries, and basically it's based on the Book of Psalms. So the idea is, I think it's based on it's called a 4-week Psalter, which means it's the Psalms. And it's based on 4 weeks, so that through those 4 weeks, we go through the whole of the Psalms. That's like from Psalm 1 to Psalm 150, spread through the 4 weeks. And basically, it's made up of psalms and antiphons before and after the psalms, and then there are gospel readings or readings from the Old Testament, from the epistles, and sometimes there are longer readings, and there are intercessions, and there are the special canticles like the Magnificat, the Benedictus. Those sort of canticles are said every day. So basically, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, this is my breviary, which is I use the full Liturgy of the Hours, which is basically 3 books. So I have 3 of these. This is the book for Lent and Eastertide, and then I have another one for during the year, ordinary time, and then a 3rd one for Advent and Christmastide. But there are various versions of it, which kind of cut it down. In the full breviary, which I use, there are basically prayers for 7 times a day. I have to confess I don't say all of them, but they're beautiful. They're all quite different. So the basic bones of the Divine Office are morning prayer and evening prayer. And I guess that's what most lay people would try and say, is morning prayer and evening prayer, and that's what I mostly try to say. And then there's also prayer during the day, which for priests and for people in monasteries, that's another 3 times a day. So it's like mid-morning, early afternoon, lunchtime and early afternoon, you have 3 more sets of prayers. And then there's a beautiful office of Compline, which is one of my favourites, which is night prayer, and that's particularly beautiful. The psalms and the readings and the antiphons, particularly beautiful. And then during the night time, or very early in the morning, there's matins, or what's called the office of readings, which is basically some more psalms, and then 2 long readings, one from scripture, and then one from one of the fathers of the church, or something like that, one of the popes or something. So basically, for priests and for religious and those in monasteries and convents, a lot of them are expected to say the whole Divine Office every day. So that's praying 7 times a day. But for those of us who are in the world, as it were, working and praying outside, or lay people who have a job, a lot of us try to say morning prayer and evening prayer, because it's very beautiful. I think the thing I like most about the Divine Office is the sense that you're part of a whole community praying together, especially when you're on your own, praying in your own home. it can sometimes feel very isolated and separated. And there's something really beautiful about feeling part of this whole body of the church that are journeying through the liturgy of the seasons and praying these psalms together. And I find that particularly moving and particularly helpful in my prayer. I also really enjoy the fact that there are intercessions, so that you can pray for all those people who are in need, who need the prayers, who need whatever their needs are, and you can bring that all to God during this prayer. I think that one of the other things I find really beautiful about it is, because you read not the scripture you would have chosen to read, but the scripture and the psalms that are given to you that day, that particular day, sometimes it can be a real challenge, because sometimes, if you've ever read through the book of Psalms, you'll know that some of them are praise and worship psalms and they're very happy and jolly, and some of them are lamentations, and the psalmist is pouring out his grief to God, or sometimes his anger. I think what's really beautiful about the Psalms is that every human emotion is somehow captured in the Psalms somewhere. And the beauty of the divine office is that these Psalms are read, and you can really enter into the emotion and the spirit of the psalm that's being read and being prayed that day. And although sometimes it can be a bit hard if you're feeling particularly low and the psalms are really happy, or conversely, if you're feeling quite happy and buoyant and the psalms are lamentation ones, it can feel a bit of a disjunct there. But I find it quite beautiful to, in those circumstances, to pray the psalms on behalf of those who are feeling like that at this time, because we know that there's somebody somewhere in the world who is perhaps really struggling or grieving, or perhaps really joyful at this moment. And if I'm not feeling that myself, I can pray this on behalf of those people, and that feels really special to me. What else do I love about the Psalms? I think they're just so beautiful. If you've never read the Psalms and really delved deeply into them, I would invite you to do that, because, as I say, that every human emotion is encapsulated in these Psalms, and they're particularly beautiful. I think my favourite office of the whole of the 7 offices is probably Compline, or night prayer. It's particularly moving, and the Psalms are particularly lovely. And one of the things that's beautiful these days is, because we have access to the internet, we have access to so much resources out there that we've not been able to tap into before. So if you're struggling to say the Psalms on your own, or to pray the Liturgy of the Hours on your own, you can look up, and there are lots of monasteries or convents around the world where people and communities are posting their live prayers, and you can join in with their prayers. And maybe they won't be in the same tradition as you, or maybe they won't be in a language even that you can understand. Some of them still say the Psalms and sing them in Latin, but they're really beautiful, and you can really get a sense of the richness of this liturgy. So I'd encourage you to look up some of the communities that offer their service and offer these prayers, so that people can join them. Perhaps afterwards I'll try and post a comment with a few links to a few of the communities I've found that are offering this online, because they are particularly beautiful. So I'd encourage you to have a little delve into the Liturgy of the Hours. There are various book versions of it. You can have the 3-book version, which I have, which is the full breviary. Most people, I think, probably have either the morning and evening prayer book, which is just simply a morning and evening prayer, but it also has Compline. Or I think there's a daily prayer which has everything except the office of readings. So you get morning prayer, evening prayer, Compline, and the prayers during the day. The other thing you can do is, now that we're in this age of modern technology, You can find a lot of these prayers are online, or you can find an app that gives you these prayers as well. I particularly I have the app Universalis, which is the full Divine Office, and I have that on my phone as an app, so that if I'm travelling or I'm out for the day, and maybe I'm sitting in a train or sitting in a car park waiting for someone, I can just look on my phone and bring up morning prayer, or if I haven't managed to say it yet, or evening prayer or midday prayer, and I can just sit and happily read those and pray where I am, which is such a gift and such a beautiful thing to be able to do and to share. So I think there's a Universalis is one app. I think another one is iBreviary that some people have. I don't use that one myself. I think both of them might also have websites, so you could look those up as well if you're interested. But let me know what you think. Let me know if you use any of these prayers of the church, or do you use the Book of Common Prayer, and how different is that? I'm not familiar with that one, so I'd be quite interested to know. I know that some religious orders also have their own versions of the prayer for the day, and I know there's the Franciscans, particularly the Anglican Franciscans, have their own daily office, their own prayer book that is very similar. And I know there have been some more modern versions that have been written, maybe in the Celtic tradition or something similar, which use the basic structure of the Liturgy of the Hours, but embellish it and bring in more modern readings or slightly different interpretations of the Psalms. So there's lots out there to explore. So I would encourage you to spend some time, if you've not explored this kind of prayer before, I'd encourage you to explore some of it, either online or through the apps. And if you haven't got access to any of that, but you've got a Bible, then just spend some time praying with the Psalms and just read some of those Psalms, because they really are very beautiful. And I think I'd encourage you to do that. But let me know what you think, and let me know how it goes for you. And we'll talk some more next week. Thank you. Blessings.